My beloved sisters, have you ever wondered what truly happens to women who walk alone, who quietly step away from circles that drain their spirit, who choose silence over forced conversations, who carry their dignity through empty streets while whispers follow them, who refuse to beg for crumbs of affection and instead walk with heavy hearts that learn to trust Allah in the dark? Sometimes it is the woman who walks alone who discovers the most powerful companionship, the type that builds her courage in the middle of a storm while others are hiding under roofs of false friendships. And perhaps you've never thought about how walking alone often feels like abandonment, yet it is often preparation for a future so bright it would blind you if you saw it too soon. Let me ask you, do you think loneliness means you are unloved, or could it mean you are being loved in the deepest way through a journey of strengthening your faith and worth without distractions? You see, walking alone can be terrifying, especially when the world makes you believe your value depends on being surrounded. But sometimes Allah writes isolation as a path to elevation. And before you rush to fill the silence with noise, stay with me until the end. Because what if I told you that walking alone is not the end of your story, but the very beginning of the chapter you were always meant to live? Walking alone refines a woman's strength and spiritual resilience because it strips away the false comforts of constant company, forcing her to confront the silence that reveals the depths of her fears and the whispers of her hopes. For it is in the quiet corners of solitude that a woman discovers the unshakable parts of herself that would otherwise remain hidden under the noise of others' opinions and the distractions of social obligations. And when she takes steps forward with trembling resolve, she begins to see that each lonely path becomes a training ground where her faith, patience, and courage are tested and strengthened. For walking alone often means facing moments of uncertainty and doubt, moments when tears fall on prayer mats during the early hours, while she whispers her pain to the one who never leaves. And in those moments, she begins to realize the difference between loneliness and divine companionship. She learns that strength is not merely the ability to endure, but the choice to continue with grace, to smile despite the weight pressing against her chest, and to refuse to let fear dictate her decisions. For a woman walking alone finds herself facing situations where she must advocate for herself, defend her boundaries, and remain true to her values even when there is no one to clap for her in the background. And in doing so, she cultivates an inner authority that is rooted not in arrogance but in the calm knowing that she is capable of handling the challenges life throws at her. For Allah equips His servants with the capacity to endure the tests they face, and each day she walks alone is another day she proves to herself that she is stronger than she thought. Spiritual resilience develops within her when she learns to rely on Allah completely, recognizing that no companionship, no matter how comforting, can replace the comfort found in sincere dua and quiet conversations with her Creator. For she learns that people may leave, disappoint, or misunderstand her, but Allah's presence remains constant, and walking alone teaches her to redirect her dependence from the creation to the Creator, making her heart firm even when the world around her feels unstable. And as she deepens her connection with Allah, she finds that her moments of isolation transform into moments of intimate worship, where her tears become seeds of hope and her whispers of despair are met with subtle signs of divine mercy. The woman who walks alone often learns to identify the difference between temporary distractions and purposeful actions, for solitude clears the fog of societal pressures and allows her to see what truly matters, enabling her to align her actions with her spiritual goals rather than the fleeting approval of others. And as she spends time reflecting, journaling, engaging in dhikr, and studying her faith, she strengthens her spiritual muscles, equipping herself with the tools needed to face life's tests with a heart anchored in tawakkul, for she begins to embody the principle that reliance on Allah and striving for excellence in her efforts go hand in hand, and walking alone grants her the space to perfect this balance without the interference of unnecessary noise. Walking alone also refines her strength by teaching her emotional discipline. For when a woman navigates life without depending on constant reassurance from others, she learns to process her emotions with wisdom, to recognize her triggers, and to manage her responses in a way that reflects her growth rather than her fears. And this emotional resilience is not built overnight, but through the quiet, often painful moments when she has no choice but to sit with her discomfort and learn to comfort herself through faith, reflection, and productive action. And in these moments, she builds a reservoir of inner strength that will support her when future storms arrive, for she will have learned that her calmness is not dependent on external validation, but on the stability she has cultivated within herself. Spiritually, walking alone enables her to purify her intentions, for when there is no one to impress, no one to applaud her choices, and no one to witness her sacrifices, her actions become purely for the sake of Allah. And this sincerity in intention is a powerful tool that refines her character and attracts barakah into her life, for she learns to do what is right even when no one is watching, to give without expecting praise, and to strive for excellence in her personal and spiritual growth solely for the pleasure of her Rabb. For walking alone removes the distractions that can corrupt sincerity, allowing her to build a relationship with Allah based on honesty and unconditional trust. The journey of walking alone also provides her with the time and space to develop her skills, pursue her goals, and build her dreams. For solitude can be the most productive period in a woman's life if she uses it wisely, recognizing that the absence of companionship can become an opportunity to invest in her future, to study, to work on her health, to develop her creativity, and to align her lifestyle with her values. And this pursuit of purposeful living while walking alone refines her strength, teaching her that she does not need to wait for permission, validation, or company to begin building the life she desires. And each step she takes becomes an act of self-respect and trust in Allah's timing. Walking alone challenges her to build her boundaries and uphold them with firmness, for it is often during solitude that others test a woman's limits, assuming that her quietness is weakness or that her lack of company is an invitation for exploitation. Yet as she learns to stand her ground, to say no without guilt, and to protect her peace, she discovers her voice and her right to honor herself without compromise. And this ability to set boundaries becomes a reflection of her strength, ensuring that when she eventually allows others into her space, it will be on her terms and without sacrificing her dignity or values. Spiritually, the woman who walks alone learns to live with patience, embracing the divine timing of Allah while continuing to strive. For walking alone often means dealing with delayed blessings, unanswered questions, and the temptation to give up. Yet her resilience is refined as she chooses to continue praying, working, and hoping, while accepting that everything will unfold exactly when it is meant to. For this patience transforms her heart, teaching her to let go of the illusion of control and to trust that her efforts will bear fruit, even if the results are not immediately visible. Walking alone also grants her clarity in her relationships, for she learns to differentiate between those who genuinely care for her and those who merely seek to fill their own voids through her presence. And this clarity enables her to protect herself from toxic dynamics and to invest her energy only in relationships that honor her values and support her growth. For walking alone teaches her to value quality over quantity in her connections and to recognize that loneliness is far better than company that drains her spirit or pulls her away from her faith. In her spiritual journey, walking alone often brings her to moments of deep reflection where she questions her purpose, her direction, and her relationship with Allah, and these reflections become catalysts for spiritual growth, motivating her to increase her acts of worship, to seek knowledge, and to develop her connection with Allah, for she learns that the void she feels cannot be filled by people, achievements, or distractions, but only by the light of iman and the sweetness of remembering Allah. And this spiritual focus becomes her anchor during her solitude, ensuring that she is never truly alone, for her Rabb is always near. Her strength is also refined as she learns to navigate the fear of judgment, for walking alone often comes with societal pressures that question a woman's worth based on her relationships, her social status, or her choices. And as she learns to prioritize her relationship with Allah and her mental well-being over the opinions of others, she becomes free from the chains of societal expectations, allowing her to live authentically and with integrity, for her worth is no longer tied to how others perceive her, but to the quiet confidence she develops through her trust in Allah. Walking alone refines a woman's strength and spiritual resilience by giving her the space to heal from past wounds, to confront her insecurities, and to replace self-doubt with faith-driven confidence. For she learns that she does not need to rush her healing or suppress her emotions, but to process them with patience while trusting in Allah's mercy. And as she heals, she becomes more compassionate towards herself and others, developing a softness in her heart that complements her strength, allowing her to move through the world with empathy without compromising her boundaries. Ultimately, walking alone is a journey of transformation where a woman discovers her strength, builds her spiritual resilience, and develops a deeper connection with herself and her Creator, learning that solitude is not a curse, but a sacred opportunity to become the woman Allah intends her to be. For it is in the moments of isolation that she finds her voice, builds her dreams, refines her faith, and aligns her life with her values, ensuring that when she eventually walks with others again, she will do so from a place of strength, clarity, and unwavering trust in the one who guided her through her solitude. Solitude helps her discover self-worth beyond external validation, because in the silence of her own company, a woman is compelled to face herself without distractions, stripped of the noise of opinions, comparisons, and expectations that often blur her perception of her true value. For in a world where worth is often measured by how many people applaud her, who she knows, who loves her, and how visible she is in social spaces, solitude removes these false markers and places her alone with her thoughts, her faith, and her heart, where she learns to evaluate herself not through the lens of others' praise, but through the sincerity of her intentions, the purity of her actions, and the closeness of her relationship with Allah. In solitude, she learns to hear her own voice, the one often drowned out by the chatter of others, and she realizes that her opinions matter, her dreams are valid, and her presence is meaningful even when no one else sees it. For she begins to understand that her worth is not tied to how many friends she has or how many people seek her out, but rather in her ability to live truthfully and intentionally, regardless of who acknowledges her. And this understanding transforms her confidence from something fragile, dependent on external validation, into something steady, rooted in her self-respect and faith, for she learns to enjoy her own company, to find peace in quiet moments, and to replace the fear of loneliness with gratitude for the opportunity to reflect and grow. Solitude offers her the space to heal from wounds that she may have ignored while keeping busy with people, for when she is alone, she can address her insecurities, her past pains, and the false beliefs she holds about herself, and she can challenge these beliefs with the truths found in the Quran and her faith, reminding herself that her worth is not diminished by past mistakes, rejection, or the opinions of others, but that she is honored by Allah simply by her existence and her striving towards Him. And in these moments of quiet reflection, she can begin to replace negative self-talk with positive affirmation, affirmations rooted in faith, telling herself that she is capable, that she is enough, and that she is loved by her Creator. She learns to appreciate her achievements, even the small ones, without needing external validation, recognizing that every step she takes towards personal growth, every act of worship performed in private, every moment she overcomes her fears, and every effort she makes to improve herself is valuable. For solitude teaches her to celebrate her progress without waiting for applause, and this independence of spirit allows her to build her self-esteem in a healthy and sustainable way. For when validation comes, it becomes a blessing rather than a necessity, and when it is absent, it does not shake her sense of self-worth. In solitude, she also discovers her passions, exploring hobbies, interests, and talents that bring her joy. For when she spends time alone, she can read, write, create, and reflect without worrying about how others perceive her. And in doing so, she learns to appreciate the gifts Allah has given her, using her time to develop skills that benefit her and others. And this process of nurturing her talents and interests helps her recognize her unique contributions to the world, reinforcing the understanding that her value is not dependent on being seen, but on being purposeful. Solitude allows her to strengthen her connection with Allah without interference, for in quiet moments, her dua becomes more sincere, her salah more focused, and her heart more receptive to the whispers of guidance and comfort that come through faith. And as she spends time with her Creator, she finds reassurance and acceptance that no human can provide, realizing that her worth is rooted in being a servant of Allah, and that no worldly status can add to or subtract from the value Allah has already given her. And this spiritual connection becomes the foundation of her self-worth, allowing her to walk through life with confidence anchored in her faith. She also learns to set boundaries that protect her energy, for solitude gives her clarity on what she can and cannot tolerate, who she wants to allow into her life, and what kind of relationships align with her values. And this clarity empowers her to say no without guilt, to step away from people who drain her spirit, and to choose relationships that support her growth rather than hinder it. For she understands that being alone is far better than being surrounded by people who diminish her worth, and this awareness is a crucial step in developing self-worth that is independent of external validation. In solitude, she finds the time to plan her future intentionally, to set goals that align with her values and aspirations, and to take consistent action towards them without the distraction of people's expectations. For she can ask herself what she truly wants, what makes her feel fulfilled, and what steps she needs to take to build the life she envisions. And in doing so, she realizes that her life is her own responsibility, and that she does not need to live for others' approval. For solitude teaches her the art of living purposefully, grounded in her own desires and faith, without fear of judgment. She begins to value quality over quantity in her connections, for solitude helps her realize that having a few genuine supportive relationships is far more valuable than having many superficial connections. And this understanding allows her to invest in relationships that nourish her spiritually and emotionally, while letting go of those that bring negativity or unnecessary drama into her life. And this selective approach to relationships reinforces her sense of self-worth, as she understands that she deserves to be surrounded by people who respect her boundaries and encourage her growth. Solitude teaches her to find contentment within herself, for she learns to enjoy simple moments of peace, to appreciate the beauty around her, and to engage in self-care without feeling guilty. And this contentment is a powerful tool that protects her from seeking validation in unhealthy ways, for she no longer needs to seek attention to feel worthy, as she has learned to appreciate herself for who she is and to find joy in her own presence. For contentment within in solitude creates a shield against desperation for external validation, allowing her to engage with others from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. She learns to trust her intuition, for solitude sharpens her ability to listen to her inner guidance, to recognize what feels right and what does not, and to make decisions that honor her well-being. And this trust in herself is a form of self-respect that strengthens her confidence, enabling her to stand firm in her choices even when others disagree. And this alignment with her inner compass allows her to build a life that reflects her true self rather than a version of herself that seeks to please others. Through solitude, she also learns the importance of accountability, for without others constantly watching, she learns to hold herself responsible for her actions, her spiritual practice, and her growth. And this self-accountability reinforces her independence and maturity, allowing her to recognize her areas of improvement while celebrating her progress, for she becomes her own motivator, learning to push herself towards excellence while treating herself with kindness and compassion. In solitude, she finds the space to heal her relationship with herself, to forgive herself for past mistakes, to embrace her imperfections, and to learn to love herself in a way that is gentle yet firm, for she realizes that seeking perfection is unrealistic, and that accepting herself as a work in progress is liberating. And this acceptance allows her to develop a healthy relationship with herself, one that is built on self-love, self-respect, and a commitment to continuous growth. And this foundation enables her to engage in healthier relationships with others, for she no longer seeks others to complete her, but to complement her. Solitude also teaches her gratitude, for in moments of quiet reflection, she can appreciate the blessings in her life without comparison, recognizing that her journey is unique and that the blessings she has are tailored for her. And this gratitude fosters a positive mindset that strengthens her sense of self-worth as she learns to focus on what she has rather than what she lacks, and to appreciate the progress she has made rather than comparing herself to others. She learns to embrace her individuality, recognizing that her differences are a source of strength rather than a flaw, and that her unique perspectives, experiences, and qualities add value to the world, for solitude allows her to discover who she truly is without the influence of others, and to embrace her authentic self with confidence, knowing that she does not need to change herself to fit in, but to remain true to herself in order to live a fulfilling and purposeful life. Ultimately, solitude helps her discover that her worth is defined by her faith, her character, her intentions, and her actions, not by the validation of others, and this realization empowers her to live with confidence, peace, and purpose, for she understands that she is enough as she is, and that the approval she seeks can be found within herself and in her relationship with Allah, allowing her to walk through life with her head held high, knowing that her worth is inherent, unshakable, and rooted in the truth of who she is and the one who created her. Isolation often precedes divine elevation and hidden blessings because it is in the quiet spaces where a woman finds herself alone with her thoughts, her regrets, her hopes, and her raw, unfiltered prayers that she begins to taste the sweetness of sincerity in worship. For when people are removed and distractions fade, she is left with nothing but her own soul in front of her Rab, a mirror reflecting her flaws and aspirations, a time where she cannot hide behind smiles or busy routines, and the hidden pain she has tucked away begins to surface, pushing her to finally address what she has been avoiding while seeking the comfort of human company. For this isolation becomes the womb in which her spiritual rebirth is nurtured. In the silence of isolation, where she no longer has to meet expectations or perform for praise. Her heart is softened for repentance, for the distractions that numbed her are now gone, and the regrets she once drowned out with gatherings, conversations, or mindless entertainment now demand attention, and she finds herself turning to Allah with tears, asking for forgiveness for moments she neglected Him, for the times she chose people over prayers, and for the choices she made that distanced her from her true purpose. And in this raw vulnerability, she discovers that isolation is not a punishment, but an invitation to return, for Allah draws His beloved servants away from the noise so they can hear His call to come back. Isolation becomes a season where her dependency on others is replaced by reliance on Allah. For when those she once leaned upon for emotional support, validation, or companionship are removed, she is taught that the comfort and peace she seeks can only be found in the remembrance of her Creator, and it is here that her tawakkul is built, not as a concept she agrees with, but as a lived experience where she realizes that Allah is sufficient for her, that her provision, emotional needs, and spiritual fulfillment are in His hands alone. And this is a blessing disguised within the loneliness, for she learns to detach from the creation to attach herself fully to the Creator. In isolation, a woman often discovers the true value of dua, for when conversations with people are no longer available to distract her, she finds herself pouring her heart out to Allah in the depths of the night, whispering her secrets, her disappointments, and her dreams to the one who already knows yet still loves to hear her voice. And through this intimate dialogue, her faith is strengthened as she begins to see the subtle ways in which her du'as are answered, sometimes not in the way she expects, but in the way she needs. And this realization strengthens her yaqeen, her certainty that Allah hears and responds, transforming her isolation into a private sanctuary of connection. Isolation can also become the catalyst for self-awareness, for it forces her to confront habits, beliefs, and attitudes that she may have ignored while surrounded by others. And this reflection allows her to identify areas in need of growth, enabling her to take intentional steps towards becoming the person she aspires to be. For without the influence of opinions, social comparisons, and the fear of judgment, she is free to discover her true self and realign her intentions purely for the sake of Allah, recognizing which actions were driven by the need for approval and which were genuinely for His pleasure. And this clarity is a hidden blessing that purifies her heart. During isolation, the distractions of the dunya often lose their hold on her heart, for the noise that once enticed her becomes meaningless in the silence of solitude, and she finds herself gravitating towards acts of worship, seeking the comfort of Quran recitation, the peace of long sujood, and the quiet companionship of dhikr, for she discovers that in the absence of human company, the company of Allah is sufficient and far more fulfilling. And this is where divine elevation begins. For as she increases in her remembrance and worship, Allah raises her spiritually, opening her heart to understanding and wisdom that she may not have accessed while distracted by constant engagement with people. Isolation also teaches her gratitude for the blessings she once overlooked. For in moments of loneliness, she begins to appreciate the warmth of sincere companionship, the gift of community, and the beauty of small interactions. And this gratitude softens her heart, making her more appreciative and humble, qualities that elevate her in the sight of Allah. For gratitude is a form of worship, and the isolation that pushes her to see the blessings she took for granted becomes a means for her to draw closer to her Creator, recognizing that everything she has is a gift to be cherished. In the state of isolation, she often finds herself drawn to learning and self-development, for with time away from social distractions, she can dedicate herself to seeking knowledge, studying the Quran, attending online classes, and engaging in self-reflection that contributes to her personal and spiritual growth. And this pursuit of knowledge becomes a source of empowerment, enabling her to develop a stronger sense of of purpose and identity rooted in her faith, for knowledge illuminates her path, and the isolation that initially felt like loneliness transforms into an opportunity for spiritual and intellectual elevation. Isolation also brings with it the blessing of purification, for hardships and loneliness often serve as a means of expiation for sins, as the Prophet ﷺ taught that no fatigue, nor illness, nor sorrow, nor sadness, nor hurt, nor distress befalls a Muslim, even the prick he receives from a thorn, but that Allah expiates some of his sins for it, and in this way the pain of isolation becomes a means of cleansing her soul, preparing her for greater blessings and drawing her closer to Allah. For what may appear as a period of loss or emptiness is, in reality, a hidden mercy allowing her to meet her Lord with fewer burdens. In isolation, a woman learns to appreciate the importance of aligning her intentions with Allah's pleasure, for without the eyes of others upon her, she learns to act sincerely, to pray, to give, and to strive without seeking recognition. And this sincerity becomes a means of divine elevation, for Allah loves those who act for His sake alone, and her isolation becomes the environment in which she can cultivate this sincerity deeply, ensuring that when she returns to society, she will carry this sincerity into her interactions, making her worship and actions purer and more beloved to Allah. The solitude of isolation can become a place of healing, for the emotional wounds caused by betrayal, disappointment, or rejection are often confronted in silence, allowing her to process her pain, forgive where necessary, and seek Allah's help in healing. And this emotional healing is a blessing, for it frees her from bitterness and resentment, allowing her to move forward with a heart that is clean and open to the love and mercy of Allah. For isolation becomes the environment in which she learns to let go of past hurts and entrust her affairs to Allah, freeing her soul from the burdens of anger and sadness. During isolation, she may also discover hidden talents and strengths, as she is given the space to explore her interests, develop her skills, and pursue projects she previously postponed due to social obligations. And in doing so, she finds fulfillment and confidence in her capabilities, recognizing that she has much to offer and that her worth is not defined by her social connections, but by the value she brings to herself and the world. And these discoveries are blessings that elevate her, equipping her with skills and confidence that prepare her for opportunities that may arise once her period of isolation has passed. In isolation, she learns the value of patience, for loneliness often feels like a test of endurance. Yet within this test lies the opportunity to cultivate sabr, to accept Allah's decree, and to trust in His timing. For patience is among the qualities most beloved to Allah, and the isolation that requires patience becomes a means for her to develop a character that is resilient and steadfast, preparing her for the challenges and blessings that lie ahead. And through this patience, her spiritual rank is elevated, for she learns to wait with hope and to strive with trust, qualities that strengthen her faith and connection with Allah. Ultimately, isolation often precedes divine elevation and hidden blessings, because it is a space where a woman's relationship with Allah is tested, strengthened, and purified, where she discovers her worth independent of others' validation, where she finds clarity, healing, and purpose, and where she develops the spiritual resilience to face life with unwavering faith. For in this period of solitude, she becomes a woman who walks with Allah as her closest companion, carrying within her the light of faith, the confidence of trust, and the readiness to embrace the blessings that await her after this sacred period of isolation. Trusting Allah while walking alone leads to purposeful, aligned paths, because it teaches a woman to release the illusion of control and embrace the certainty that her journey is guided by the one who knows the unseen and the hidden intentions within her heart. For walking alone strips away the noise and opinions that often cloud her direction, leaving her face to face with the reality reality that while she can plan, strive, and hope, the unfolding of her path lies with Allah, and this surrender becomes the gateway to inner peace and clarity, for the burden of having to figure out every detail on her own lifts when she realizes that her efforts are only a part of the equation, and that Allah's decree is always best, even when it differs from her desires. While walking alone, she learns to replace her dependency on others with reliance on Allah. For without the reassurance of constant companionship, she turns inward and upward, seeking guidance through istikhara, turning to the Quran for clarity and pouring out her confusion in dua during the last third of the night. And as she consistently practices this reliance, she begins to notice subtle signs, moments of ease in unexpected places, sudden clarity after confusion, and the gentle pulling of her heart towards certain decisions, teaching her that trusting Allah does not mean inaction, but moving forward with faith while leaving the outcome to Him. And this realization frees her from overthinking and fear of the unknown. Trusting Allah while walking alone also purifies her intentions, for without an audience to impress or companions to influence her, she is left with her sincerity, asking herself whether her choices are aligned with what pleases Allah. And as she refines her intentions, she becomes more aware of the weight of each step she takes, ensuring that her actions reflect her values and that her path is one of purpose rather than people-pleasing. And this alignment with divine guidance becomes a compass, helping her prioritize her faith while navigating the challenges and opportunities that arise during her journey. This trust anchors her during periods of uncertainty, for walking alone often involves facing situations where the next step is unclear, where fear whispers doubts into her heart, and where the temptation to give up or compromise feels strong. Yet her belief that Allah is with those who have tawakkul gives her the strength to continue, for she understands that hardship often precedes ease, and that isolation often comes before divine openings. And in moments of weakness, she reminds herself that Allah's plan is always working in her favor, even if she cannot see it immediately. And this reassurance allows her to move with quiet confidence through the valleys of uncertainty. Trusting Allah while walking alone leads to purposeful, aligned paths because it transforms obstacles into opportunities for growth. For when doors close and plans fail, she learns to view these challenges as redirections from Allah, guiding her away from paths that may harm her and towards those that will nurture her faith and fulfillment. And this mindset shifts her response from frustration to gratitude, for she sees Allah's mercy in every closed door, understanding that His wisdom surpasses her limited perspective, and this acceptance becomes a source of strength that helps her continue her journey without bitterness or regret. During her solitary journey, she learns to find companionship in her